welcome back to Happy Bake Day. I hope you had a great week. I hope you got some baking done. Today we're baking again. We're going to be making some lemon bars with a shortbread crust. I like using the glass baking dish here. You can also use a ceramic. I do not recommend using a metal baking dish. You can also see that I've lined my baking dish with some parchment paper. And I do this instead of doing a butter or a grease or a spray or something like that. Because firstly, we're going to be doing a shortbread crust, which is going to be primarily butter based. So it's going to be greasy enough as it is. But also with the parchment paper, when we're done baking everything, as you can see, I've kind of draped my parchment paper over the sides of my baking dish. This way, when the baking is done, I can lift the flaps of my parchment paper here and completely lift it out of the tray. So that way we can cut the lemon bars much easier. This recipe is really great for other ways too. Like I said, today we're going to be using lemons, but you can do all other citruses as well. You can do orange, tangerine, grapefruit if you're a little more adventurous. You might have to play with some of the sugar ratios, especially with some of the more tart citruses like a grapefruit, or even if you choose to do something like a lime. But today we're going to be using lemons. The ingredients for the shortbread crust that we're going to need for today are 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, half a cup of granulated sugar. I've got 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract, half a teaspoon of salt, and then 1 cup of melted butter. One of the first steps that we're going to do is we need to preheat our oven, and we're going to preheat it to 325 degrees. Okay, we've got our oven preheating, and so the next steps are to combine all of our ingredients here into a single bowl. I do have a small rubber spatula here to help me mix it together, and then once it has formed a nice dough, then we're going to put it into our baking dish.
I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train.
As you can see, while we're combining here, the dough is starting to get kind of crumbly, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want. Again, this is a shortbread crust. It's basically butter and flour with a little bit of sugar. So it's going to stay this kind of nice crumbly consistency. I'm just gonna mix it for a little bit longer until I put it into my baking dish here. But it's basically done. I just wanna make sure that I don't have any big chunks of flour in here or any obvious flour pieces or parts that I've missed while I'm combining, since I am using a spatula here. But I think it's pretty good for the most part, and we'll transfer it into the baking dish. So this is what my crust currently looks like pre-baked. I've packed it down, I think, pretty well. Again, using the spatula for most of it, and then I used my hands to help pack it again at the final time. You can still see my parchment paper is over the sides of my baking dish, and I think it's ready to be put in the oven. We're gonna bake this crust for about 20 to 22 minutes. You wanna see it become a nice light golden brown color. You don't want it to be too cooked because once we put the lemon curd in here, this will have to go back into the oven. So if you get it too brown and toasty, then this kind of becomes like a hockey puck at the end. So once you see it become that kind of lighter brown just right over the top, that's the time to take it out of the oven.
Oh, my pocketbook is empty.
While the dough is still warm, one thing you can do is take a fork and poke holes into the top of the dough. Be careful not to poke straight down to the bottom. I'm really just piercing the top here to create some indentations. All right, now that our crust is done, I've got mine off here, cooling to the side. We're going to make the lemon curd. In order to make the lemon curd, you're just gonna need a few more ingredients. I've got 2 cups of granulated sugar, 6 whole large eggs, 1 cup of lemon juice, 6 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I've got 1 tablespoon of lemon zest, and I've got half a teaspoon of lemon extract. So the first steps here, in order to make our lemon curd that will be poured on top of our crust here, I've got my 2 cups of sugar, and I'm just going to add in my flour. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix it until really well combined. So my next step now is to integrate my eggs. I'm gonna whisk them in here with the sugar and flour ingredients as well. And then once those are well combined, then I'm going to add my lemon juice, my lemon zest, and my lemon extract. My curd's ready to go. My baking dish is finally cool enough that I can handle it without oven mitts, but my crust is still a little warm to the touch, which is nice. It smells absolutely delicious, very buttery. So now what we'll do is we'll pour our mixed curd here directly into the baking dish. We're gonna put it in the oven. Again, it's still set at 325. It's gonna bake anywhere from 22 to 26 minutes. I still recommend starting out at the lower time, and then you can always increase your time later. You're going to leave it into the oven until it stops jiggling and it's pretty well set. A good way to test that is with your oven mitt. You can usually tap the side of your baking dish, and if it's still pretty jello-y, pretty jiggly, it needs more time to bake in the oven. If it stops jiggling when you do the tap, that's a pretty good indication that it's done. You're gonna pull it out of the oven and you're gonna let it sit and cool at room temperature for about an hour to 2 hours. And once it's cooled for about 2 hours at room temperature, that's when I recommend putting it into your refrigerator and letting it cool for about another 1 to 2 hours in the refrigerator as well. Highly recommend it chilled, serving your lemon bars chilled versus room temperature. Chilling them helps them set a little bit more firmly, and also, who doesn't love a nice, cool, crisp citrus dessert? Okay, so I just pulled my lemon bars out of the oven. They look beautiful.
Ooh, looky. Oh, does it look tasty?
They look beautiful. They smell even better. Full disclosure, so I ended up baking mine for about 36 minutes in total. So I know originally I told you it should take about 22 to 26 minutes. At the 22-minute mark, mine were very soupy still when I did the tap test. So I set it for about another 7 minutes. And at that point, I took another look. And again, when I did the tap test, it was still pretty jiggly. Like we discussed a little earlier, I'm going to leave them here on the counter. I'm gonna let them cool to room temperature for probably about 2 hours. And then after that, I'm gonna put them into my refrigerator and let them cool for another 2 hours. Then we'll take them out and we'll finish it up. So what I'm going to do is after they cool, I did buy some confectioner sugar. So we'll tap some of the powdered confectioner sugar across the top of these lemon squares. Then we'll cut and enjoy them. If you don't have confectioner sugar, if you don't want to buy confectioner sugar, it is completely fine, not a big deal. Secret hack to confectioner sugar though, if you have granulated sugar, which you should because we use some for this recipe, you can actually put your granulated sugar into a coffee grinder and grind it really thin into a nice powder, and that's basically the same thing as your confectioner sugar. So in case you don't have confectioner sugar but want to use some, you can actually DIY confectioner sugar at home, which is pretty cool. Thanks everyone for joining me today. I hope you had a great time baking. I'd love to hear how your lemon bars turned out. Did you actually use lemons like me, or did you choose to use a different citrus? I'd especially like to hear if you tried something like a grapefruit, which I honestly have not tried yet, but it's definitely on my list. I'd also like to hear in the comments below if you have any recipe suggestions that you'd like us to try together at another time. As always, the recipe is going to get posted on the website. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you had fun with me today. We're going to be posting episodes again every Friday, so don't forget to subscribe so that way you know whenever we post a new video. I hope you guys had a happy bake day, and we will join each other next time. Have a good one.